Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sports Corner with the Conn Man on the Sports Wave Network. I have with me this evening my great friend, Mr. Gene Smith. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great, Conn Man. How are you, sir? Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Man. Gene, I wanted to do something a little different. First of all, I'm going to let people know a little bit about you, those that don't know, the very few. And then what I want to do then is kind of turn it because you've already been on my show. And this is my show that I want to be able to give you your roses. So I want to let you handle it in any way, shape, or form that you decide that you want to go. And then we can talk about the landscape of NCAA. We can talk about the Big East. We can talk about Coach Cooley and whatever you want. So, folks, for those of you, the minority of you who don't know who Gene Smith is, first of all, Gene Smith, born August 20th, 1962, hometown Washington, D.C., high school McKinley Tech. He played guard, 6'2", weighed at that time. I don't know what you weigh now, Gene, but I will keep it quiet. But 170 pounds. And in 119 games, Gene never led his team in scoring. He started just 8 games his senior year and fouled out more games than anyone else on the team that season. That's because he played aggressive. And they said, doesn't matter. Because for anyone who saw him play, there is no doubt that Gene Smith is one of Georgetown's all-time greats. Smith was not heavily recruited out of high school, but Coach John Thompson, we all know who he is, knew his defensive intensity fit Georgetown like a glove. Warriors fans saw Smith as a defensive specialist from the start. In the January 1981 game versus Villanova, he held Stuart Granger, who was a bad boy, scoreless while forcing numerous Villanova offensive fouls. Equally adept at steals and assists, Smith started the final 8 games of the 1980-81 season, finishing third in team assists. And we can go on and go on and go on and go on. But for the folks that might not know Gene, give them a sense of what it was like playing with Georgetown and, your experience playing for the great coach John Thompson.
First of all, thanks, Conn Man, for that introduction. I appreciate it. Playing at Georgetown during the '80s was a pivotal time for college basketball, especially at Georgetown, especially in the Big East, because the Big East was formed in the '80s. So Georgetown and the Big East are almost synonymous. The original coaches that you had in the Big East were all legendary. So it was the colliding of all these things going on at the same time with what was going on in culture with hip hop and music. So it was, and then we were in DC. So we were a DC team. DC was always more Maryland, the Maryland Terrapins with Mo Howard, Albert King, uh, Ernie Graham. And then Georgetown came onto the scene with John Doran, Craig Shelton, Eric Floyd, um, and it just became a situation. And then Big John, Coach John Thompson, I'm leaving out. All these things are happening at the same time. So it's kind of the perfect storm. And just to be able to be a part of that in a small way or in my own way was cool because as your intro touched on, it's not like I was highly recruited. Getting a chance to play at Georgetown was well beyond my bandwidth at the time. And I guess from that, I derive um, this way of living, which is, when opportunity presents itself, you have to be ready. And in order to be ready, it's okay if you have some doubt. You know what I mean? Just know that doubt can be healthy. That doubt can be motivation. And you gave me kind of like a broad stroke of where to go, and I'm not that great a storyteller where I wouldn't be jumping all around. So I'll say the difference between my freshman and my senior year. Again, the intro is Georgetown in the '80s, bursting onto the national scene, the Big East bursting onto the national scene. Georgetown was the first school to win the Big East tournament in 1980. So the stage is kind of set. You had St. John's, you had Syracuse, Villanova. So we all know about the Big East, the power of the Big East back in the '80s. So to be a part of that, as I mentioned, was well beyond my bandwidth. Freshman year, Big John recruited me on. This was his recruiting pitch. Gene, you're going to be a practice player. And, some of my close friends have heard this story before, but it's like, you're going to be a practice player. You'll never start. I'm not bringing you here with that. But you'll get a chance to go to a prestigious college and, graduate. So it wasn't like it was a motivating speech. But I did, but I did need to be motivated. And my story runs conversely to some of the people that I was able to play with. Being play with a Patrick Ewing, a Eric Floyd, a John Doran, and these are all legendary names in the in the Big East, legendary names of the Big East. To have the opportunity to play with my high school teammate in college, Billy Martin and I played 2 years in high school together, and then he becomes a top 50 player in the country out of high school. McKinley Tech, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
Go Tech train. He ends up at Georgetown as well, and he's part of the Patrick Ewing, Anthony Jones, Ralph Dalton recruiting class, which was probably top 5 in the country that year. Patrick being the most coveted. So Billy comes to Georgetown, so we get to play 3 more years together. Yeah, it was just one of those things where, like, man, you know what that's like? We played at high school with the cat. Now you're playing at college with them. Like, that was, mind blowing. But we didn't miss a beat. It's not something, him and I thought about at the time. And he probably didn't tell me until many years later, like I was part of the reason he came. And, like, that's some stuff that you don't really tell anybody about. You kind of keep to yourself.
Right.
Just because it's kind of, it's parts of the game that sometimes are better left unsaid, I guess, some of the best stuff happens away from the camera. So to be a part of that, again, I hate to, keep going backwards, but to be a part of that was really special. So my freshman year, I'm coming in with the mindset of, man, I'm happy to be here, but this is a tremendous opportunity. I'm gonna give it my all. Part of the story, my introductory, was Fred Brown, who was top 50 in the country, Adlai Stevenson High School, Bronx, New York, 6'5", one of the first, big point guards. Not the first, but, Magic, after Magic. And he was Georgetown prize recruit that year. So that's my competition. So I'm going to get an unbelievable competition. So I was already a scrappy player to begin with.
Right.
So my mindset was, how can I get minutes? I know my coach told me I'm here to be a practice player, but there's no way I'm gonna live with that. So,
Right.
I wound up, averaging, I think, something like 16, 17 minutes a game as a freshman. I started the last 8 games my freshman year. We lost in the NCAAs in the first round. But I started the last 8 games. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you at the beginning of my freshman year, I said I'm going to start 8 games. I did say that, but I do know going hard every day was the only thing I knew. Like, when and I played, obviously I played against some mad talented people. Their approach was a little bit different than mine. And one of my, I won't say it was a goal, but what my mindset was, I don't want these guys to like me.
Right.
That's not going to be my role. And because, who in practice wants somebody going game situation in practice? Nobody really wants that.
No, absolutely not.
So, for those who are listening, it's just like, it's not a rags to riches. It's just, it's my story. And, I when I see a kid that's incredibly talented, I can relate. When I see a kid who is at the end of the bench, I can relate. And I'm always saying to the kid at the end of the pitch, if you in the gym, if you in practice, if you eating the same food he eating, and if you boom, 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 figure it out. Figure it out. Now, don't get me wrong. We all built differently. Especially, and again, I don't know how to fast forward this story to today. But again, you gave me a broad stroke, so I'm going to go broad.
Go broad.
I think the kids today are so individually talented, so individually talented. But once you get into a team as a collective, I don't know if the pieces fit as there are not too many specialists. And again, a specialist, you still have to be able to put the ball in the hoop. I happen to be a specialist that couldn't put the ball in the hoop. Man, there's this guard at Marquette, and I apologize for not knowing his name. And I don't want to call him Python size, but he's an undersized guard. And he's number 22 from Marquette. I watched Marquette against Kansas this weekend. This young man, unbelievable defender, relentless going to the hole. If I could say anything to him, in my humble opinion, man, you get that three in your game, you're gonna be a nightmare. He's gonna be a nightmare. I mean, he's just impacts the game right away. Shaka's a great coach. Shaka Smart. He's building the culture there at Marquette, I think. And I don't want to get off base because I'm a Georgetown guy. Always wear my blue and gray. I'm a Georgetown.
Right.
But big Marquette's in the Big East, and on the strength of that, that makes Georgetown better. That puts more eyeballs on every team in the Big East. Marquette's going to be ranked in the top 5. Oh, they're currently number 4. I don't know if they move up because they lost to Purdue.
Right.
Great time of the year. Happy holidays. Hopefully, if you are a b-ball person, football person, great time to be forgetting about, able to take a break from the things that are going on in the world.
Right.
So again, for me, freshman year, and hopefully somebody can edit this for you. Freshman year, yeah, man, I overachieved. So my sophomore year, I got a job working on campus. In addition to going to summer school, I got a job working on campus, and my job was at the gym. So I worked out that whole summer I had other guys coming down doing one-on-one workouts, playing full court one-on-one, like just the biggest compliment I got was that summer. Eric Floyd, he was the MVP on the team. Like Eric Floyd was just a monster. Gastonia, North Carolina. I think he still holds the record for the most points in the playoff in the second half or something in a playoff game.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Big John told me he couldn't dribble. That Big John was, he was a mastermind on and off the court. And, again, coming from my point of view, Big John was not necessarily the end all be all, but he just represented so much, and I'm not going to get into this thing like, because I didn't know my dad, Big John became this father figure. It wasn't that, even though there may have been some dynamics of that, but it certainly was, not the driving force. It was his, it was his approach. And again, it wasn't for everybody, but it was just one of those things where, you know, that he was taking that spotlight and he was making it about something bigger than the game, but also realizing the game he had to take care of, he had to be successful in. But that's a risk.
It is.
I mean, that again, you can, you know, it was. I think he was well equipped, so it wasn't a risk to him. And he was successful right away. But again, Maryland was the dominant team in the DMV. So Big John didn't get to Georgetown until 72. So he wasn't he wasn't exactly a household name, but Big John had already formed relationships, or he formed relationships very quickly with likes of Dean Smith, Bobby Knight, and again legendary coaches. But it's just interesting that Dean Smith was one of his. If you read his book, I Came as a Shadow, Dean Smith is one of the people that I won't say mentored him, but him and Big John were close. You had two incredible basketball minds. I don't know what Dean Smith was like um, off the court, but just stories you hear. Like I think one of the stories when just stories you hear about his relationship with his players are strong, unique, to say the least. But yeah, like I said, I'm all over the place. I had talked about kids today with the incredible amount of skill they have. Um, but collectively, I don't know if they, because society is kind of a lot more detached now. And I'm not here to say whether that's good or bad. That's just a fact.
Right, right.
The fact that we're doing this interview or this talk, let's just call it talk. The Conn Man, there are no interviews. You come and kick it. But yeah, I mean it's you know collectively, I just think that there's a struggle there because society is built the way it was built, as I mentioned. So social, because you got to talk on the basketball court. You gotta interact. You gotta form almost as one. And I know it sounds kind of corny, because you know I, some people don't need that much time to mold, but even took on a professional level, you know, maybe collegiately it's a little bit different, but obviously different. But on a professional level, it usually take about 2 seasons. Like I don't think Milwaukee's ready this year. This isn't. I mean, now next year maybe vastly different. It took Bron 2 years in Miami. I'm just going on some examples.
Okay.
Now in college today, you have so many one year impact players. Um, and then the option, the way the kids are going through the system now prepares them differently. Um, yeah, I mean, like Georgetown, I can reference Georgetown
Okay.
because that's a school I follow and love and support. Um, they have kids from the portal first year. Some kids are redshirt freshmen. Some kids did 2 years. The makeups are different. So if you have a culture, and mentioned culture, which is what I think Shock is doing at Marquette. If you have a culture in place, you can grasp that. The kids can pick up that energy, a lot sooner. And I think again, that's just part of the ingredient. Obviously, talent is everything, but to be able to have that talent matched in areas where there may be a deficiency, right? Because again, I still think the better teams win. Right?
Great. Well, let me ask you something before we go any further. I'm going to get back to that. But what I want to do is I kind of want to go full circle because when I originally started doing these podcasts, my original intention was to, I guess, specialize, excuse me, on the Big East, the way the Big East used to be, and I'll explain why in a minute. But you brought up Marquette. There's like a dichotomy going on because Mr. Kolick, I don't know if you know who he is. He's a Big East Player of the Year. His dad, I refereed his games out here in UMass Diamond. So it's a little thing going on with me, his dad, and Kolick from Marquette. So I know you're coming from there. Now going back in the day,
what number is Kolick? What number
number
is
11, left hand. He was Big East Player of the Year.
about Tyler?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's my guy. But anyway, so going back from the get go, I knew Pat Ewing. Matter of fact, I was a senior; he was a sophomore, and he was obviously dominating everybody. So I know him very well. And then someone who I think you played against, if I'm correct. Well, again, what I try to do is I've had Tony Bruin on my show. I've
Very
had Reggie. I've had yourself. and I'm trying to get Donnie Brown and some other players to come on to talk about the Big East the way it used to be, because
But
that's
I
that.
got I got two guys for you, and I want to give them a plug. Two guys, they have a platform called the Big East Rewind.
Yep.
And this Chuck Everson from Villanova, graduated '85 on that national championship team that beat Georgetown.
Uh-huh.
Him and Reggie Williams are really good friends. It'd be
Okay.
great. You can get those two, or you can do Big East Rewind, Chuck Everson, as I mentioned, and Sonny Spira. Sonny graduated from Syracuse. I want to say, I think I'm older. Sonny, I apologize. Yeah, Sonny played in the Big East. I want to say graduated '89, but I could be wrong. But they have a show called the Big East Rewind, and they have a YouTube channel. I would say like and subscribe.
Okay.
Uh, and it's an ode to the Big East, but also they also have a range of guests. Like Jay Billis has been on,
Okay.
Rafferty's been on, like legends have been on.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
and then they do. I've been on the show as well, but it's a really good property, I should say. It's a wonder to me that the Big East Conference hasn't adopted them, and I mean because
They-
they do a really conscientious job. They're coming up on their 100th episode.
That's
So,
fantastic.
so I hope hopefully you'll write those names down, or
I'm
maybe
already on top of it, my friend. But
or
the
may-
two more names I want to bring up, two
yeah.
more that we can go on and deal with you, because I know you know both of them very well. I'm trying to, get come full circle here. I think right now. I think he's probably considered one of the best coaches in the country. He
Mm.
just got hired by Damon Stoudemire at Georgia Tech. I think you may know him. His name is Kyle Hobbs.
Oh,
Um, Kyle's coming on my show as well. When he first got the job from Rutgers, I kicked it with him. His brother Ron played with me in college. See what I'm saying? I'm going full circle here. I'm going full circle. And then the one that's my heart and soul, my best friend in the world, happens to be, I know you know this guy pretty good, David Lato. I think you know him very well as well. So, I mean, uh, it's coming real full circle now. You know what I mean? I used to go to all the UConn games when he was, assistant coach with Calhoun and DePaul and Virginia and Missouri and Tulsa,
right.
and went back to DePaul. Now he's in Atlanta with the Overtime Elite program. So it's coming full circle. And the reason when you talk about today's players, let me ask you a question too while I get you on.
Mm.
When I was growing up, and the Big East, there weren't too many channels, if I recall. I think the ESPN might have been at the beginning stages. But now, do you think because of all these cable stations and 5,000 TV shows, to me, it seems like everything's getting watered down? Where back in the day, I remember there was only three channels. I remember when David Thompson first arrived at North Carolina State, they became more, I don't know, maybe more of a fixture, whereas now it's filtered. There's like 8,000 channels. There's a 55,000 games. What is your opinion about that in today's game?
That's I think it's just the evolution of the game, and I mean there's just so much availability, so much opportunity, so much worldwide, regional. You talked about the Big East in the earlier days. ESPN was part of the rise of the Big East.
Right.
That's how the Big East got a foothold on the West Coast because the kids were just getting out of school and they could watch the Big East game, Big East
Yeah.
Monday. I mean, Dave Gavitt was the
Yeah.
master of the Big East, and I only bring that up because today, the opportunity with NIL for a kid to have his own brand and maximize what I think is just natural, God gifted, and just being able to tap into it is just everybody can't do it. But because the first thing you must have is talent. You know,
Yes.
it does you no good to have these opportunities and you don't have some type of talent. The talent doesn't always have to be basketball. There's a young man that I follow on LinkedIn. He's the backup quarterback for UCLA. I mean, he has a brand, his ability to reach out and touch people. I have no idea how much money he's making, But it's one of those things where I would say to a lot of young athletes, don't listen to me. Watch this guy.
Right. Right.
Watch how he's moving because clearly, whoever you're paying to represent you should be telling you these things.
Right.
Because again, NIL to me is, you got you making a lot, and then you have a lot not making as much
True.
because no one's tapped into what their personality is, what hobbies they may have, coming up with interesting ways to collaborate with people. I mean, some things are pretty basic. I, I've worked in the sales, marketing, branding space, professionally for over 3 decades. So I come at this with that in mind, but I don't come in it with that in mind to exploit. I come at that with, I think, the athlete or the person that's being marketed or branded should come in with their own ideas of how they want to be branded. Should tell their own. And if you're working with a brand, have them, look, I want to be a part. This is going to be a partnership. I have my own production. I have my own production people I want to work with. Because the day where you just give yourself to a brand, those days should be over. But that may be a different episode.
It might be. Can I ask you one more question, Gene?
Sure.
Do you think? I'll just give an example. I don't want to be
I don't
one.
know if I don't know if I answered your question though. Did
You
I?
did. You kind of, yeah, you kind of did. You kind of did. Like you said, it's the way it is today.
Yeah.
I'm old school. Those memories mean a lot to me. It resonates with me more because I'm old school. But like at these other times, and we have to accommodate ourselves and deal with the situation the way it is. But what I was going to ask you too is with the NIL. You got players right now. For example, I'll go Shador Sanders. I'll just give a name. He's making $7 million a year.
Mhm.
He's making now more as a college going to be what sophomore, junior, than he would be signing a NFL contract. What do you think? If maybe not him because of his dad, I know how that goes. But what about some individuals who are making that kind of money? Will they lose some incentive? Do
I,
you
I,
think
I don't
maybe?
I don't think once you make 7 million in college, and again I don't know what first year NFL salaries. I'm not dialed in like that, but it's something I could Google.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm sure his first year professionally won't be less than 7 million. So his bar is just high. He's setting his own bar.
right, right,
So to me, I guess for me, if I'm Shador or if I'm, you know, Caleb Williams, these are the only names. Again, I'm not a college basketball diehard, but if I'm the dude on the team, what I'm thinking is, how can I make sure every team eats? So if it's my center or if it's my offensive tackle, I'm coming up with ways to, because what does that do? That builds nothing but camaraderie. Builds nothing but but I don't think kids are getting this type of advice.
right, right.
And again, you can't be mad at Shador if he's getting 7 mil,
Not at all.
but
Not at all.
Shador is wearing the L on his chest.
Yeah,
Dion got the D for dog, L for leader. If
yeah.
I'm gonna make sure my crew is eating.
Right, right,
As a matter of fact, I might have my crew eating before me.
right.
You see sometimes MVPs, quarterbacks at the Super Bowl or at the end of the season. I think Emmitt Smith used to do it. He used to buy all of his offensive linemen Rolex.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember that.
Uh, and again, I think I guess I would take less of a focus off of the loot and more on how managing that loot. Because what's been this news everywhere. I'm a TikTok late night TikTok guy. So Angel Reese,
Okay.
I don't know what she was making. I think she was making millions,
Hmm.
and she should. I'm saying that like, way to go,
Yep.
buy you Barbie. But now she's having some, off court scuttle,
Uh
right?
huh.
And I did not realize how much vitriol, if I'm using that word, how much people don't like Mulkey, the head coach at LSU. Um, I'm old enough to remember her as a player, right?
Yep.
But it's just interesting the dynamics of that. Now, if I'm in Angel Reese's ear,
Yeah.
I'm just letting her know both sides. That's it. I mean, she's clearly smart enough on to get to this point.
Right.
And I don't know what team she has around her, but I'm saying if I had her ear, I'd be like, yo, how you gonna play this? Because there's a villain element to this. There's a victim element to this. I mean, there are elements to this. Again, if you're in that stratosphere where I think she has something other than her skill set, her money making, her basketball, I think there's other things there to uncover. So it's just like I would just put it to it that way. So for me, as much as the opportunities are there, there's still too few eating off that pie. I mean, there's another guy I would love for you to get on your show. His name is Merle Code. Merle Code, Code. He's the author of a book called The Black Market. I encourage your listeners to pick it up. He was a sports executive, and I had the opportunity of working with him. Impeccable. I mean, should be a basketball GM or assistant GM. But it's an interesting story. It's a journey of a sports executive who fell on this war, did the right thing, and wound up with 6 FBI agents knocking his door down for 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 money laundering.
Oh.
So I say all that to say that's a guy you'd love to have on the show because I quote him all the time. He basically said, and I respect this guy. He says that the NIL is just a band aid. Like that is the NBA is still making more than what's I think anywhere near equitable or like yeah it's just a way because it's built in like it's nothing one person is going to well I shouldn't say one person can't alter one person can alter. I mean I think Big John again I hate to go back but I think Big John altered the face of college basketball like he challenged in the way that other people weren't. So whether you agree or disagree, just nobody else was doing it. And I've heard coaches, speak fondly of him. Today's coaches speak still fondly of him, and I think that's impressive. Because I don't think Shaka Smart is trying to be John Thompson. I
Right.
don't.
Right.
I don't think Ed Cooley's trying to be John Thompson, but I think they're running their programs in a way that, to me, um, the origins lie in the way Big John ran his deal. Big John was, the marketing of the team, relationship with Nike. I mean, his business, his off the court income started to, especially after the Olympics in '88, start to rival, whatever Georgetown could pay him. And then I'm sure there was a time. There's a story, a Nike story, I think it was. Big John was always the highest paid coach. He was the highest paid coach at Nike doing his. I don't know how long that run lasted, but I say all that um, today's young black coaches, I think they relate to that in an inspiring way, and still like Kim English at Providence who replaced
Yeah.
Cooley.
Yeah. Hmm.
I watched the cat, the young guy, Maryland. I forget his name. Not Maryland, American. Young guy, American. They just played Georgetown.
Right. Hmm.
He's a phenomenal young coach. He played in Maryland. I don't want to say his name wrong, so I'm not going to say it. But yeah, that's. I just think you said you want to take it full circle. Well, that's Big John is full circle now.
Okay.
You know,
And
you know.
and now just we're gonna go back then because again, this is about you. So I'm looking back here. I'm doing a little research.
Well, I'm not. I'm not. I can tell you, Con Man. I'm not gonna let you make it just about me. I get bored doing that.
Let me just give a little bit more. Then we can go ahead. Let me give a little bit more. Let me see where we're going here. It says with you also played with Fred Brown, Michael Jackson, Horace Broadnax, David Wingate. It also says that Smith's greatest game remains the stuff of NCAA legend. Though he only played 17 minutes in the 1984 NCAA semifinal, Smith helped to lock down the Cats' backcourt, and the rest of the team soon followed. Trailing by as many as 12 points in the first half, Georgetown put on a defense, and Kentucky could not respond. The Wildcats missed its first 12 shots of the second half and 18 of its final 21, and a 53-40 upset to the Hoyas. And they attribute that to your part of you as a team as well, your great defense of that game as well. So I know you don't want to talk about you, but I want people to know the impact that you had, even though you weren't a big scorer, even though you weren't the face of the program, you still contributed in a very special way. And obviously you were named captain, so the team had to have respect for you as well as Coach Thompson. So keep it real. That's all. You know how you are.
But if we're gonna keep it real, then we're gonna keep it real
Okay.
because Big John selected the captains.
Okay.
There was no, there was no democratic process,
Okay.
and it was one of those things where for me, I hadn't, and again, I say this only, just to tell the story, right? So for me, it wasn't dawning on me like wherever I played ball at, I was captain or co-captain. Whether it was elementary, um, junior high, high school, and then college. But it's not something I ever thought about, right? Because you'd be kind of, I don't know. I think you'd be a little presumptuous thinking that you're captain or something when you don't score, right? Like, I mean, usually the best guy on the team is the captain, right?
Usually, correct. Usually.
And let me tell you, I was not the best guy on the team. So I tell the story in that context. So when Big John selected me as captain, I have a story. Maybe your guests will be interested in the story. So Big John, selects me as captain. That's a double-edged sword because I'm not the nicest guy on the team. I mean, that's Patrick, that's Reggie, that's Fred, that's the whole crew. The whole crew. Like the one guy had more, attention. Yeah, yeah. I was not the best, most talented guy on the team. Um, so the respect was kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever. He's loud. He's,
Right.
he plays hard in practice. He might be a coach's pet.
Right.
He may be here to just, And I tell that story in the context of once Big John brought me to his office and says, Gene, some guys on the team may be, smoking, getting high.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about this now because marijuana is legal, right?
Right.
And, well, at
Okay.
least where I live in California, marijuana is legal. So the story is not as dramatic now. And I said to Big John, I just kind of nodded comment. He says, well, what did you hear about that? And I said something to the effect, I don't know that, what'd you hear? So
I like.
it was those things where I was like, I don't, what you hear? It's completely reflective.
Right.
And I thought he said, you can go now. You can go now. So I don't know if that was his way of saying what kind of dude I am.
Uh-huh.
So but I kept it at that. But I never forgot it. So for me, it was more about, okay, like my energy, even though it may not be coupled with my talent, is contagious. It's contagious. My sophomore year, Billy Martin, the guy I mentioned who I played with in high school, played with at Georgetown. Before NCAA game, it might have been the NCAA Sweet 16 in 1982, sophomore. I got hurt my sophomore year, so my minutes, that 16 minutes I was getting the game, gone.
Oh,
When I came back from injury, because there was no red shirting. When I came back from injury, no minutes. What Coach Thompson had told me became a reality. I was a practice player. But
uh,
guess what? But guess what, Conn Man? I was a practice player in the 1982 NCAA championship game.
right? Absolutely.
So so and I watched one of the greatest games and you don't realize it until now.
Right.
Or maybe, I realized it a while back. Don't want to date myself that much. But you realize the magnitude of the game. Like, it was the most watched game in the NCAA for a long time. I currently don't know where it ranks, but I'm sure it's in the top 25 or something. Louisiana Super. Michael Jordan is a freshman. Hits the jump shot. That becomes part of his trajectory, right? And I'm on the bench because as a sophomore, I played maybe 4 minutes, 6 minutes. I spelled somebody,
Huh?
and just do that, sit me back down. But that was, again, coming from where I came from.
Right.
A little bit of love freshman year, sophomore year get hurt. Now I'm just a practice player. Worked my way all the way up to at least I got in the NCAA championship game.
Right.
But fast forward, I don't want to get caught on that tangent. Fast forward, the game you mentioned, which was probably by far my best game in my 4-year career. And not so much because of the performance, but the timing. That was a Final Four game. That could have been my last college game.
Wow.
And to have any type of impact. I mean, because the reason why I say it was my best game, I played my usual defense. Defense, you was going to get defense no matter what. Some days I was better defensively than others. Some days you run up against a Pearl Washington and
Right. Right.
you got to pick your spots.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I get him one time a game, he's still gonna get me six.
Right.
You know? But I say all that to say, I was fortunate because we had really good guards too.
Yeah.
So I was getting that work every day. That's you and me. Now,
That's me. Yeah.
okay, so I was getting that work every day. Um, but yeah, man, I don't know what point I was on, so bring me back.
You talking about your game, the
Oh
timing of
yes.
the game.
Oh yeah. So the timing of the game was my best game, and I bring that up in the context that I got hurt in that game, so I didn't play in the championship game. That was it wasn't bittersweet then. It's bittersweet now, but it's not bittersweet on the level that it was, say, 10, right? Because obviously I played in every game that season. I'm pretty sure. Um, my no one questioned, particularly in the Hoya Nation, no one questions my impact. I mean, I'm very humble. I say that very humbly. Um, so it was just one of those things where it just would have been ceremony. It was like not on the level of, say, what happened with Fred Brown, and then he wins the national championship in '84. Like that to me is like Brian song material, right? Like that's a those who don't know Brian's song, that's the story of Gail Sayers and Brian Piccolo. But yeah, meaning that, like, I just think that's a defining moment. Like, so it's not on the level of Patrick, or maybe it is on the level of Patrick becoming the only Big East player to play in the Big East and win the championship, and as a coach to win it. Patrick's the only guy. So those type things I think are worth noting. Um, but yeah, it's just an interesting time. It's an interesting time in the game, and I think the Big East has been rejuvenated. I don't want to bounce, but you said you want to talk about the Big East as well. Uh,
Yes.
I think it's been rejuvenated. I think the coaches again are behind making things happen with Patino at St. John's. There's a lot of interest in that. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in Cooley. This is Boeheim last season? Or, no, it's Red Archery. Red Archery's first
Yeah.
season.
Yeah. Still juice. Yeah.
I mean, I mentioned in Providence, and I know I'm leaving out a lot, but I gotta say my Big East knowledge is, rooted in my alma mater. I watched them the most. Um, it was tougher over a lot of years. You were talking about the cable stations. A
Yeah.
couple of years I couldn't find Georgetown on a cable station,
Right.
and we were going through a tough time. So it's good. I love the exposure for the kids. I think they do need to be um, counseled or advised on how to be more successful. Because again, there are newsletters that these kids can read, right? I read them, and you see what other people are doing, and it's not to compare yourself to what somebody else is doing. It's more about tapping into what you're about. Because if I was playing today, if I was playing today in my own little bubble, I would be making moves based on the way the style of play. I don't know. Maybe I would have been a cockroach endorser. I don't know. You know, but pesky. Hard to get rid of. Uh, show up when you don't want them. Then when company come over.
Hey, hey, Dean. What I wanted to, that was good. What I wanted to ask you too is, again, I got to reverberate to back in the day. Like Kanseca and Bayheim and Thompson and them guys. I'm gonna go off Big East, but Bobby Knight, Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, these guys were there for a long period of time. And if you notice right now, most of these coaches, very rarely do you see a whole bunch of coaches that have been around and stick out maybe even 5, 6 years. The turnover rate is to me is incredible. And if
Yeah.
you're gonna pay a coach X amount of dollars and you're gonna pay him off to leave, I don't know. Do you think that because of the pressure of winning is so important that they just fly by and get rid of coaches on the whim? I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
I don't think it's part of it's part of the hustle now. Like that's the deal. Like these guys are making, relative. These guys are making to their predecessors. They're making market value. They're making tons of loot.
Yes.
This is part of the equation. This is part of the you got to produce. And again, the opportunity, just as the opportunity it is for you to get your dream job, there's an opportunity that you're gonna lose it if you don't win. That's there's no way. But I think where you land sometimes could be a better situation, and the most important thing is you don't land outside of the game or outside of what it is you do. I mean, some guys like I said, what Shaka's doing at Marquette. I think what Cooley is shown thus far is in what he did at Providence. Even though I think he's got to be tired of talking about Providence, and so I won't belabor on that. But I just think he's, and I consider myself, an insider by default, just because I played there. And
Right.
you a championship, and I was humbly a part of that team.
Absolutely.
And I was part of the 1982 team that lost in the you know championship game against North Carolina. And and just think, we were in the national championship 3 out of 5 years,
That is
82, 84, and 85. And
Right.
you and I both know the conversation about Georgetown, I think, would be different. Even when I say different, it would be more acknowledged, or um, acknowledged is the wrong word, but I think more appreciated. Have went back to back
Yeah.
because about winning. Um, and then through the period of the '80s and '90s, I think we were always good, and I think Allen Iverson brought the program back on the national stage.
Yeah. Yeah. He was okay. He was okay. But now, then getting back, because we only got about 10 minutes. I could talk to you for 10 hours, but we got about 10 minutes. So I want to kick it with you. Now we're talking about Ed Cooley. As you know, uh, I followed his history way back in the day when he was playing ball in high school out of Providence and going to Boston College and Southern Connecticut State and UMass Dartmouth. And, I know I've been following his career, and he's a good man. I've always had the utmost respect for him. And then, of course, he took a lot of heat leaving Providence because that's where he said that was his dream job. And he's from Providence. He's from the ghetto. He's from the hood. And I think a lot of people were upset the fact that he left. Although, I mean, at the end of the day, it's his choice. He did what he felt was best for him and his family, and he also got a nice little pay raise too. But and going to an established program, and I'm proud of the fact that he's there, and I think he's gonna turn that program around. I think he's gonna do some great things because that's the way he is. He sleeps, lives, and breathes basketball, and I know how he is as a person and as a man, and I just have the utmost respect for him. Now I know you guys so far are 3-2.
So I get to speak on Coach Cooley for like a couple minutes, just because
Of
you
course.
stole all my time. Um, I've had the opportunity to have him on a platform I have called Hoya Locker Room.
Okay.
If you can, if you just YouTube Hoya Locker Room Ed Cooley, you can check out the episode.
I
That's a
will.
shameless plug for my program, which I never do. So thank
Talk
you.
about right now. Good.
Like like and subscribe, Conn Man. You like and subscribe. I'm gonna wait for the reply or the alert that you liked and reply, because I like and reply. I like you and subscribe to you.
I got you. I got you. Okay.
um, Had Cooley on, and Cooley made it a point to embrace all of Georgetown, the students, the alumni, the DMV.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's approaching this in the most professional way. But also, you talked about him being highly compensated, like, the highest paid person on Georgetown's campus, which is, to me, warranted. Um, he loves what he does. Like,
Oh, come on.
I mean, way. All I can tell you, comment, watching him on the sidelines, watching him do the AI with the crowd, like, uh, no, Patrick wasn't doing that, and not to say that that's what makes a good coach. I just think kids today relate to that.
Yeah.
They relate to that, and I love. I mean, this year is just he's got to manage. He's reestablishing a culture. He, whether he sees it this way or not, is his culture. This is the hashtag Cooley era. So I have I look forward to watching every game. Hopefully, I can get to see a game in person soon. But yeah, I think he's the right guy at the right time. And Providence wasn't easy, and Providence is upset and has every right to be upset. And they're playing. They're playing well. I think they're playing well. They have Georgetown picked to be eighth, I think, and Providence to be seventh.
Okay. And the fact that I know they played five. I think they're 3-2. Georgetown is, if I'm correct. I know they lost to Rutgers, and I know, which was surprising to me, they lost to Holy Cross. But they do have wins against American, Lemoyne, and Mount St. Mary's. I keep tabs too. I keep a little tabs
Yeah,
on. I think
appreciate.
it's a growing experience. I think in time, Georgetown's going to be a team to be reckoned with. I know he's been successful everywhere he's been, so I see no difference in that as well. So
Yeah. I mean, I doing a little research on him. He had successful runs every place he's been. And again, he built a style, a culture, play at Providence, and you know when a person receives that much, takes that much heat for leaving the place. Like he left on the mark
Yeah.
on the program. So I think it builds great theater for the Big East because now Georgetown Providence game, I mean, may not on a national level be must see TV, but it's definitely there's a storyline there, and on a regional level, on the Big East level, that's something you want to see. That's something I think that's going to be all the theater you like of college basketball. Like,
Absolutely. I can't wait for that. Can't wait for it. As a matter of fact, they play tomorrow at noon against Jackson State. I think that game is going to be televised nationally. I think.
Jackson State is welcome back. Tyler Adams played at Georgetown.
Ah, see?
He's almost a mythical figure. He's an assistant coach at Jackson State. Uh,
Awesome. That's what it's all about. Wow. Wow. Come full circle. Now, we got a couple of minutes remaining. This is on you. I'm going to sit back, chill, and let you have the floor for about 4 minutes, my brother. Go handle your business. This is my
yeah.
gift you, my gift to your roses.
So 4 minutes. Wow, that's a lot.
Whatever you
Especially because you let me go. Yeah, I guess for somebody who worked as an executive, and I don't even want to call it an executive, but I spent some 3 decades in this footwear, apparel, marketing space. I just like to encourage maybe they're the parents, maybe they're friends of people that they know are operating in the NIL space, to tell them to seek, you know, advice from people that are promoting them, promoting who you are, not something comparing you to somebody else, or because then everybody has a story. And I think a lot of times brands get caught up in it's becoming more of a brand story than the individual story. I think you can have both. I'd love to tap into the LaMelo Ball, and that would be my challenge to Puma. That'd be my challenge to Melo. Like, how do you want yourself? Because the opportunity to have your own in-house team to work that works for you versus giving up, passing that baton or giving that responsibility to a brand. I think a lot of times the brands are um, internally they're different, they're set up different. So I just would encourage a lot of players, if you're not the guy, to consider being in that space because you've been a teammate of a female that's operating on a high level, or a male. You got females playing football now.
right. Right.
And again, you're not doing it as the lead in. You can't let the story get ahead of, you know what I mean? Because then you'll be making 7 million one year and then 3 million the next year.
Right.
So if you're doing $7 million things, you better make sure you're doing $7 million things. How are we gonna do $10 million things?
Right.
Right? So I would encourage counsel, and they have what they call a collective, and that's usually an NIL group for the school or the program or a particular sport. And again, it's still people who are working in these collectives that don't really have the resources. Now, because the one thing in the branding space, if I don't know the answer, I know somebody that does.
Right.
And if I don't have the answer, I know somebody not only that does, but that's better,
Right.
right? And that relationship is not just transactional, right? Like there's no. I think when you're working with an athlete, there's no cookie cutter approach, right? You make fundamentals. What we do when we work with an athlete, we give them like 10 questions. And, if you're able to answer those 10 questions, it tells you what kind of person you are. Now, if you're bullshitting, it's also going to tell you it's going to tell you you're bullshit.
Right. Exactly.
You know, don't tell me you're artistic and you can paint, and then you give me some bullshit. But like a good example is Flau'jae with, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, with LSU. She's a rapper. I think
Um,
she got a lifestyle. I think, again, I think nobody can tell her story better than she can, and her mother can. So I think just make sure you're part of that creative in a way that you're eating off of, your people are eating, not just the brand is eating off of with somebody internally. So, and again, I'm speaking from experience. I'm not speaking from a space where I'm just, giving my point of view. Now that shit happens.
yeah, definitely.
That's kind of how it goes down. I mean, it's evolve, and it's only going to evolve further with AI. Like I don't know how AI is going to connect or collaborate with the NIL world, but guess what? I know somebody that does, and I'll be talking to that person. And I can bring that person to you to talk to.
That's how you do it, man. That's fantastic. See,
I
that's
mean, but now that speaks to a
right.
broader theme. Like, why is that not happening?
Correct.
Why are we turning over? I mean, I know so many people that work in this brand space, and this is internal jobs. They're in charge of lifestyle for a big brand. And you look at this person and go, what qualifies you to even have that title? So again, if you want to, you should ask me the next time we talk. I'll give you the career highlights for me.
I will definitely. Oh, you know we're gonna kick it again.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, I'll give you my career highlights because my career highlights are they're small, but there's a story behind it. So we'll save that for next time.
We definitely will. Now for the viewers who I'm sure are very impressed with you, obviously, how can they get in touch with you and let them know about going on your viewing your podcast and your shows? Let them know. I guarantee you they'll be tuning in.
Well, I'll just say this first of all. If you're a Hoya fan, you probably heard about Hoya Locker Room at the very least. But if you haven't, it's a program that we've been doing for about 3 years now. We just celebrated our 100th episode. We're built. Our theme is connecting the past, the present, and the future. And the past is only valuable as it relates to the future. It's a Frederick Douglass quote. Um, and we try to bring back, nostalgia, but it's also important to talk about what's going on today and how does Georgetown fit into that. So that's the theme we're going to be taking on going forward. So, we've had episodes where, we talked about things that are, they're national, but it's more about Georgetown and where they fit. We talk about the importance of the culture. We do this through our guests. Like my co-host is a former manager at Georgetown. I'm class of '91, and I'm class of '84. And we've been doing this for a while. Yeah, you can reach me at Hoya Locker Room on IG, at Room Hoya on X, or previously Twitter. And our YouTube channel is Hoya Locker Room, and I encourage you, if you listen to the Conn Man, give us a listen to, or like and subscribe. We appreciate it. I mean, we're small but mighty. We have a nice um, organic following from those who appreciate things about our Hoyas. So yeah, that's how you can reach me. And Conn Man, I appreciate you, man, for having me through. And next time we get together, we're gonna talk more about you.
I'm not. But first of all, I want to thank you for coming on my show, folks. I reached out to Gene. He don't know me from a hole in the wall, and I want to give him thanks. I mean, he could deny, decline even coming on my show, but every time I ask him, he comes on. We kick it. I mean, we cool together. You know what I mean? I appreciate you coming on my show, and best believe I'm gonna have you on again very soon. Maybe towards middle end of the year. See what's going on with the Hoyas and anything that might come up, or anytime you want to come on, you give me a holler, my brother. I appreciate you for coming on my show. God bless you. Thank y'all for tuning in. Sports Corner with the Conn Man on the Sports Wave Network. Stay tuned. We're gonna be kicking the next Friday as well. Good
Hey,
night and God.
comment, can I say something?
Yeah.
You got 10 seconds. Comment if you have any coaches that have NIL questions, don't hesitate to push them my way.
You heard that? Oh, they're gonna hit you up now, my man. Thank you. God bless.
All right.